Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 20 of the Flow University YouTube channel. My name is Stefan D. Boating, and in today's episode, we will be talking about emotional fitness. I apologize for being out of the loop for the last couple of weeks. I have been focusing on some work in other ventures, so I wanted to give my full time and attention to those things. But as my time has become more free, I will be beginning to give more and more to you guys, releasing more episodes. The benefit of me taking a brief hiatus was that I was able to dive a little bit more deeper into not just fitness in the more deeper realms of what it actually means, but also how it relates to people in their everyday lives, diving into emotional fitness, diving into some of the other overall themes that we have been focusing on in this channel. In today's episode, as we begin to dive into how you can use fitness to manage, control, and express your emotions, you will gain a sense of sovereignty, but not just sovereignty, but a sense of heightened awareness as you begin to actualize and being able to have a sense of peace and calmness as the emotional realm for us human beings manifests itself to us as a never-ending state of chaos. I hope you all enjoyed this week's episode of the Flow University YouTube channel and use this episode to aid you in your everyday life, not just in the ebbs and flows of life, but in your everyday human interactions, in your being able to navigate and relate to the external environments, but also with the internal world deep within yourself, being able to manage and to engage and create that state of flow. I hope you all are ready for this week's episode. Let's get started. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own souls. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Carl Jung. This goes into key number one for the individual beginning to master their emotional center, beginning to have a sense of emotional fitness. Key number one is free will or lack thereof. Unfortunately, individuals, free will exists on a sliding scale for us human beings. Some individuals have the capacity and the fitness to manifest and control and to exude their will, while others do not. And the will can be grown, the will can be improved upon, and the will can be developed by engaging in different mechanisms and different everyday occurrences. But for the individuals that do not undergo this process, they have a lower level of will, and their will be submitted to by the ones who have higher and more developed wills. And so in essence, people's wills can be crushed by the influences and suggestions of others. This is what the modern individual is encountered by within the external everyday environment. So for you individuals that are constantly being bombarded by the external influences of advertisements and the influences of what you see when you drive down the street by fast food chains and by modern mechanisms, what essentially has happened is that humans, we have dived so deep into the psychological and the ways of human subconscious in how we relate into buying things and how we cause and begin to engage in making decisions, that essentially is gotten to the point where people are able to know what you're going to do before you're even able to do it. And so for the individual that is encountered with this, you must increase your will. And so you must begin to become conscious of what is the first inclination, the first feeling, the first passion that bubbles itself up to the surface when you are beginning to make a decision or a choice or the lack thereof. So for the individual that has allowed the emotional state, the emotional realm to be their driving factor, any emotion that comes to the surface is what you will decide to submit to. But for the individual that peels back and takes a step back from their emotions and has the emotional realm out in front of them instead of combining with it, you will be able to see the suggestion, see the passion, see the emotion, and either say, okay, this is the emotion that I will engage with, or reject the emotion. So this is how you begin to have choice. This is how you begin to increase your will. But if you do not have control over this, then essentially the first inclination that bubbles itself up within the emotional center, then immediately that is what you will submit to. And so this is you beginning to subvert the reptilian, animalistic, instinctual mind from the mind of the more highly enlightened, conscious aspect of your more actualized self. And this takes time. This won't happen overnight. This won't happen immediately. But this is just your will can improve. So, for example, when you are in the refrigerator and your first inclination is to eat that piece of pizza or to eat that chocolate chip cookie, what is bubbling itself up to the surface? Well, it might be tastefulness. It might be delicious appeasement of the taste buds. So what you can do is, or it might be pleasure, or it might be desire. And so what you do is you say, oh, this is what has bubbled itself up to the surface within my mind. Okay, what am I really wanting right now? You might just really be wanting nourishment. So you can control what you are willing to submit to, but you must increase your consciousness to do so. So I've talked about this in previous episodes and how to increase your conscious awareness. And this is one of the ways you do it, is by beginning to have a lens of choice within life. And so the only way that free will can become free will is if you believe that free will exists. If you do not believe that free will exists, then therefore free will does not exist. And so it's changing whether or not free will is on a objective marker and shifting it to a subjective marker. Then it will become a sliding scale. And then you'll be able to use free will in whether or not it is a marker. And so now when more highly pressured influences are hampered down onto you, then you'll be able to realize that it is just you having a weak will and that you must increase such a thing. So it's you being perceptive of the fact that there is a perception that you do not have free will within an instance. But once you believe that you have will within an instance, then the ability for you to express that will increase. And this also means that you must also take on a lens of having convictions, having resolve, also having meaning, purpose, and context. These things are very important because if you do not have these things, it's easier for suggestion and influences to make you do things. This is the difference between being an automaton and being an actualized being. An actualized being has an order of values, an actualized being has a vision, an actualized being has context for their current situation, and it has purpose and it has reason for doing things within everyday life. So when you open up the fridge and there is a desire to eat that cookie, if you have all of the aforementioned foundations, then it will be easier for you to say no to the cookie. But if you believe that you have no choice, that you believe that the suggestion, the first inclination that is bubbled up to your mind is just of a stronger will than yours, then the second you see that cookie is the second you will eat that cookie. And so this is shifting your lens and your perspective. And so perspective can become reality. And in this instance, it is shifting what you want your present reality to be. Do you want the present reality to be that you have no will? Or do you want the present reality to be that you're able to express your will freely? Now, there are restrictions, oppressions, and submissions that have happened within mind that modern society has done to the modern individual, but the modern individual must become more aware and more knowledgeable of the things that modern society has submitted it to. And so the more that you are aware of these things, the more that you'll be able to shift through them. And so it is peeling back the thick veil that has been casted in front of you and seeing exactly what modern society has laid out in front of you. And so for the average individual, modern society doesn't want you to have any power, any sovereignty, and any choice. Because the more actualized beings there are, the more individuals are that is going to be actually playing the game from a sense of them having power and them being able to shift and move. And for the ones who are actualized, this becomes detrimental because it takes away from their ability to get more resources. And this is all in a facade, in an illusion, even from the ones who believe, quotation marks, that they are actually in competition with others. It's all a delusion. So modern society is a grand delusion because we as human beings, we believe that we are these highly conscious and aware beings when in actuality we are not. And so humans, they do not look out into the broader sphere of the cosmos. They only look down into the everyday workings of the tiny sphere that is modern society. And so when it comes to your emotional center, when you actually begin to really understand the deepest and the truest aspects of self, then you realize that you are more than the tiny box that modern society has printed out for you. And so you're able to transcend the everyday identifications and the everyday simple misidentifications that modern society gives to you. And so when the first passion, the first emotion that comes within your mind or bubbles up within the surface of your being, you're able to say, okay, this is how I feel in the moment, and you're able to quickly shift through that. And so this is the difference between people who are easily insecure and the people who are firm and have a true essence and a true solid understanding of self. Because when you have that true solid understanding of self, there is no subjective marker that modern society gives to you that can make you change your social currency. And so it's making you understand that social currency is clearly a facade. It doesn't speak to the character of an individual. It doesn't speak to the deepest, truest aspects of one's individual self. And you cannot buy this. You cannot purchase this. You can't get this on Amazon. You can't get this even in some far off, luxurious, I even forget how they even say it, but you can't even get this in some of those, closed chambers. You can't get this anywhere. This can't be bought. This is something you have to experience and find out for yourself. And from this, you will experience joy. You can manufacture. You will become a real alchemist in the truest sense. You can flip despair into hope in a flip of a dime and a snap of the fingers. You'll be able to be in states where you feel hopelessness, and now you feel extreme joy, love, peace, and ecstasy. And you won't have to go to a certain place or do a certain thing. It will just be present with you within your everyday life. And with this, you will have eternal peace. And when you go out and you see your brothers and sisters who are trying to realize this for themselves, but they do so within their own methods and within their own lanes, you will have a sense of comfort and you will wish them peace and love. And from here, you will have peace. Going into key number 2, the center of self, the heart. So the heart chakra for the modern everyday individual has been closed off. And I really am saddened when I see this. The average everyday human, they protect their heart, but they protect their heart out of a false sense of hurt. Guys, humans do attempt to hurt humans, but the only ability to receive is to give. And for the human, you must give everything you have and expect nothing. The modern human has this false precept that they must receive without giving. Guys, you can't. It's like the first trade and bartering system of money, right? The modern everyday human, the only thing they view things off of is materialism. And they view materialism off of a false sense of value that we humans give to it. But the reason we humans give these things this value is because we want resources. And humans have a false sense of taking and gathering. But in order to do these things, we must first give in exchange. So even if the exchange is time and energy, in the most simplest of ways, we must do these things, and so we must receive other things. And so humans place conditions on this. But if you want to transcend to a higher level, you must give with zero expectations of anything. And from this, you will release the heart chakra. And from here, you'll be able to exude a presence that is unlike anything anyone else can give you. And then you will just not connect. And I'm sorry to be metaphysical here, because I know a lot of you come here, or the few of you that come here, they come for more so the, fitness and the everyday applications of what they can do in the gym. But guys, the modern fitness industry is only a mechanism to help individuals in achieving advances within small spheres and games that we humans have crafted within fitness. So like bodybuilding is aesthetics, powerlifting is how much weight you can lift with a barbell, CrossFit is how much you can maximize your physical fitness. And so within those spheres, people can maximize within those niches, but outside of that, the full sphere of fitness is how much and what is your ability and capacity and your capabilities in surviving within the broader environment. And with that, emotional fitness is paramount, because without a true control over the emotional center of the heart, you can't even connect with other humans. And if you can't connect with other humans, then you essentially become cut off from your brothers and sisters within the world. And if you're cut off from your brothers and sisters within the world of everyday human life, then it's much easier for you to be cut off from all of existence. So having emotional fitness is very important. And you cannot have emotional fitness if your heart chakra, the heart center, this is closed. So you must open up. And for you humans who have closed off your heart chakra, I apologize. There are humans who move in darkness. And I apologize, I'm looking at my camera is at a low battery. But for you humans who operate with a closed heart chakra, essentially, you have been hurt by humans who move in darkness. And you must understand that these humans who move in darkness, they have become the darkness, they have become the void, and they do these things off of ignorance and foolishness. It wasn't personal in the sense. Now, some humans do things off of personal, and these humans are evil. But for the humans that have hurt you, you must understand that it was simply ignorance, and that you cannot close yourself off from the full breath of life that sits out in front of you. And if you release this heart chakra and you're able to exude love, joy, peace, and hope, from this, you will have control and you'll be able to regulate your emotions. And so when you go out and people do things, it's not so much about you being meek. You can have a sense of being meek and being humble and being kind doesn't mean that you're weak. It means as though that you're also capable of extreme violence, but that you're able to have a sense of extreme control. Think about this. When you see a rabid animal in nature and they begin to flail around and they begin to attack almost instinctually, yes, there is a degree of violence, but there is no precision, focus, or any precise pinpoint on what they're doing. There is an intention and there is no control over the emotions. But when you have a degree of control and you're able to pinpoint that, then when you attack, you're going to hit your target. So it's removing the lens of uncontrolled instinct to ultra instinct. So moving on to key number 3, consciousness. Guys, there are humans who operate on a low level of consciousness, and there's humans who operate at a high degree of consciousness. And so we as the human species must increase our conscious awareness. And the importance of this is that when you have, and I'm going to preface this because I know this might piss a lot of people off, but the truth must be released. When you have the consciousness of an insect, what you do is your lens only focuses on tiny spheres. And so you believe that these tiny spheres is the whole of existence. So much so that you believe that you are the whole of existence. But when you begin to view things from a higher level and you believe and you begin to see that you are part of something that is, and that you are a key factor in moving the all that is, then you peel back the veil and you see, oh, there is so much more here. And so from the tiny dot of a perspective that you have, peeling back all the way till you view things from the cosmic perspective of all that is, then you see, oh, when the Batista gets my order wrong, that's a small blip in the eternal radar of everything that is. And then from there, of what emotional significance does this have to me? When the person cuts you off on the road, when you get in an argument, you will have such a zen-like calmness. And this is especially important because life is war for us human beings. So when this happens for you, you'll have a presence of, and now people will be able to come to you for guidance, you for support, you for correction. Because while everyone else is running around with the fires in the whirlwind of life, you'll be the eye in the storm. So this is allowing yourself to be the eye in the storm instead of the storm in the forceful winds in the tearing up of trees. You can be both the eye and the hurricane. That's how you control the center and raise your consciousness. Control versus restriction. Now, some people will say, well, aren't you trying to restrict your emotions? No. When you allow flow within your life, you express continuously. And I see this all the time. I went on a date last night with this girl. I'm not going to go into details about it, but what I did notice is that you can tell the difference between humans and beings who are able to express themselves fully and be the center within the chaos, even though they are the chaos, versus the humans who restrict themselves so much so that they can't even utter a sentence without trembling in fear. And so this will aid you in being like the flow of the river and not the chains that pull back animals and chain them to poles and posts and trees, or leashes that we string back against them. The same leashes that have restricted humans in the past because humans falsely identify themselves as being more than other humans. It's understanding who you are and expressing that fully. And this will allow you to, when you're with your friends, your family, and anyone else on the street, to be with them in this small blip of time. The small blip of the internal now. And from this, every moment becomes extremely precious. Going into the last key, the throne room of self, guys. You must dive into the eternal world. I'm writing a book right now called The Genesis of Fitness, A Genuine Remedy to Madness, Volume 1, where it will essentially be a mythical epic where we will dive into the deepest chambers of self. But when you begin to create structure and order within the eternal world, then you will create a throne room where essentially the passions must submit to you. And this is how you increase the sliding scale of will so that you may have free will. So when wrath presents itself to you, you say, okay, this is wrath. What does the external environment look like for me? Should I express this or not? And if the external environment is in alignment with the affirmation beginning of wrath, then you allow it to flow. When hope presents itself, what does the external environment express itself as? Despair, fear, paranoia, anxiety, anger, laughter, harmony. When you create and you become the center, and the emotional fitness has increased, you will exude a presence and energy of almost a Zen-like quality. And this is what you see in a lot of leaders. This is what you see with a lot of individuals in positions of authority and positions of power. These individuals have mastered their emotions within such a way that it doesn't interfere with their thinking mental process. So even though chaos is forming around them, they're still able to think critically. And so if you lack a high degree of emotional fitness, it will be hard for you to think clearly in certain situations. And you see this for a lot of younger developed humans, is that the first thing that they feel, they submit to. This is why a lot of young guys, they get in a lot of fights. This is why a lot of young guys, they think with the lower aspects of their body, if you get what I mean. But when you're able to elevate past that, then you will be able to direct and shift your life as you see fit, even though you cannot and you will not be able to control everything. At the very least, you will have the calmness and understanding that no matter what comes your way, that you'll be able to handle it. So I want you guys to take all of the keys given in this episode and begin to use them throughout your everyday life. And this is how you can become the light in between the darkness. See, the darkness does things without thinking. The darkness just consumes, exudes, and suppresses. But the light expresses, expands, and becomes, and develops, and ventures. So begin to shift your perspective slowly from the things that are attempting to control you, restrict you, oppress you, and submit you. Like two wings developed around a dark cloud coming around you, does the darkness want to dim you? But when you can become the control center, then you will be able to power through that. I hope you all have enjoyed this week's episode of the Flow University YouTube channel. This is Stefan D. Bowden signing off. You all enjoy the rest of your day and stay blessed.